Type 1 diabetes is basically an autoimmune disease that is mostly associated with people who are younger children. Um, Not to be confused with type 2 diabetes, which is generally, it's a completely different type of thing. So type 1 diabetes, like your body doesn't produce insulin, and your beta cells, which are found in your pancreas, which do produce insulin, are basically not producing the amount of insulin that they need to, like your body needs to for the carbs that it consumes. Type 2 diabetes is when your beta cells are unresponsive to insulin. So it could also be managed with just basically a good diet, or like, an injection that occurs every day, where type 2 or type 1 diabetics rather, we're completely insulin dependent. When I first was diagnosed, I caught it luckily very early, so early that the doctors basically didn't find many symptoms that are generally associated with people who have diabetes. So they basically assured me that I was going to be okay. But we did a fasting period, and my blood sugar, after a 12-hour period of fasting, which a normal blood sugar would be between 70 and 150, and mine was 250. So they knew immediately then that I did have type 1 diabetes. Very trying at the beginning, and also getting familiar with like how many carbs are in certain kinds of foods, I think, was the biggest learning curve as a diabetic. Getting familiar with like how many bags are in like a thing of pasta, a thing of chips, the stuff that are like generally associated with heavy carbs. I had this little carb book that I would be looking up everything and measuring everything out very precisely. I think part of that was being fearful that I would drop low too. Now I could basically go out to eat, and I'm no longer like reading food labels religiously. I could go out to eat comfortably and be able to eyeball how many carbs are on a plate, and roughly estimate how many units of insulin I need to take. So it definitely makes me a little bit fearful, especially being like an active person, because like I said, physical activity brings your blood sugar down, and the more intense the activity, the quicker it'll drop. So it's constantly like a balancing scale. Like you need to be taking the carbs to counteract that exercise, but then you also don't want to shoot it too high because then you're in danger then too. So it's very, very difficult balancing all that. And I think there's always a little bit amount of fear in the back of my head that, I'm going to be in a situation I'm not going to be able to bring it up, because there have been rare instances where for some reason or other I just haven't been able to bring it up. It's very frustrating and discouraging to, be an individual that might want to live a life that's like doesn't have a job that provides that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we like creative work. To be able to pursue whatever we want and not worry about having to go to a job that provides like a really good healthcare coverage just so I can live, is very, very discouraging, especially in living in a country like the United States. That should be the top priority. And to think that there's people who have conditions much worse that they did absolutely nothing to have, and they don't have access to live, that's just, I don't see how that's not the top priority for our legislators. Yeah, I think there's a stigma on diabetes in general, which unfairly gets associated with type 1 diabetics. Whenever I tell people I have diabetes, no one really knows that there's even like two types of diabetes. So generally, diabetes is associated with the type 2 diabetics, which are overweight, haven't managed their lifestyle properly. A lot of that is genetics and stuff like that, but it's mainly basically obesity that's associated with type 2. So yeah, like explaining to someone that have, diabetes, always gets jumped to that side.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, they're just like so miseducated on it in general that they're just like, oh, just like have a pixie stick or something. and they don't like understand like how complex it is and like how many things are impacted by your blood sugar, um, and like that there's so many factors involved that you really need to be incredibly knowledgeable in order to manage this disease. And it's not just, you know, like orange juice and insulin, you know, or like it's just a lot more involved than people give it credit for. It's a really, really complex disease. And the people that tell you differently just don't understand it, or they just don't manage it well enough and haven't educated themselves enough on like what potentially can happen with low or high blood sugars. Um, so I guess that I just wish that they would be more informed on it, and you know, treat people differently or help people, you know, that may not be managing it well, because that person may just not have received the proper direction or the proper health care, and that's definitely an issue in this time and age when you have health care that's increasingly inaccessible. So I just wish that there was a bigger support network and more information out there about it.